Dragons and Wolfpack into one side or the other to balance up numbers. Effectively, Roses plus. Great in the short term for wet sails from endless derby matches. Good Friday every month for Wigan. Parochialism will kill the game. Telework pay for it. I actually think it's daft to have one league and then a playoff. I much prefer a split league and playoffs from the best in each split, but from pools, not conferences. From any split system, you end up with less games for losers, so there needs to be a plate competition for them to get revenue. A draft system would be very difficult to put in, culturally, practically and legally. The advantage of pools would be to vary the fixtures over the years. It would also avoid Lancashire sides never winning, some sort of emoji which looks like an alien on my screen.
I think it's something laughing. To highlight that was a joke. You delivered it very much as one as well, Sarah.
Oh, good. I'm pleased about that. Seriously, conferences could get lopsided. Drawn pools could be an easier way to promote teams into the league. You can seed teams or not, randomise it if you want. You can even have more pools or less. It doesn't have to be the same every year. You could have guest teams or tester teams who appear one season to test the water in a new market with the longer costs of committing to many years. It might happen that a derby doesn't happen one year. I can hear the wails. What? No Hull KR this year? Well, we're not really that bothered about that. Scarcity has value. If all we value is the wet sails on a derby day, it's just pissed up the wall anywhere.
So, what Alan, the key thing there, what Alan touches on is when I talk about this sort of conference system, I suppose I've envisaged it being like the NFL where you get divided up into your little divisions and you stay in those divisions and you have some inter-division or inter-conference play with the other people each season, but effectively new rivalries are built within these new conferences. What he's suggesting is a draw each year so that all the teams get put into whatever number of pools you come up with based on how many teams get a full-time license to play in this full-time competition, and then there's a bit more randomisation then of the fixture list and stuff like that. And I think he suggested you could sort of seed it so that you could pick like better teams from last year to be separated, so it's an even split of different teams within the pools and stuff like that. But yeah, it's a different way of doing it, but effectively it's a similar model though. It's just a slightly different way of drawing up the teams each year. I think it's an interesting idea.
Yeah.
It's a tricky one, isn't it? In terms of it feels like the tendency is to play around with format, whereas the key issue is having, if you had 16 full-time capable teams, we probably wouldn't be having this conversation, would we? Really, that's the kind of issue. That's the key issue, I think, for me, is that we don't have enough teams who are capable of competing on an equal footing at the moment, which is largely down to financial or lack of financial clout. And it's difficult to know which is the chicken and the egg situation here, really, in terms of, is it the product that's stopping it from growing to that, or is it more just a natural size of the market is the problem? And I'm liable to think it's the latter rather than the former, because we've tried almost every format under the sun, and none of them have really fundamentally changed it. So my question is, it has to be about the commercial base, and that has to be the priority.
Yeah. So for me, like, that's why I think we're diluting our resources by, no offence to the semi-professional clubs, but we're giving too much to clubs that are probably taking more out than they're putting back in terms of value to the sport, which is really sad to have to say that, but it feels true. And then on top of that as well, my main drive for this full-time competition is that they are that they work together more, that more things are shared, so that the money that Wigan, Leeds and Warrington make and St Helens make, more of that is shared with the other full-time professional clubs that are granted access into this league, because without sharing more, I don't think we're ever going to have a strong enough league to be a true elite competition that rivals other elite competitions in other sports for those eyeballs, for those sponsorships. And I'm not saying we want to take over the top mantle of the most profitable, or not most profitable, most revenue generating sport, like soccer. I don't want to get to that level necessarily, but it would be nice to have a bigger presence and less of a fear that our top clubs are going to go out of business.
Well, yeah, this is the thing, isn't it? Because even your top clubs make a loss. That's the harsh truth of it.
Yeah, year to year they can make a profit or they can make a loss. I mean,
year to year. I did read your piece, and I was looking at I looked at a couple of examples, just to see what the kind of balance sheets were of the things that are publicly available.
Yeah.
And obviously we haven't seen 2019 figures yet, and God knows what 2020 figures will look like. But if you look at 2018, which is the last kind of year, St Helens, who had a very good year, lost £400,000.
Yeah, they're talking about, like, obviously they'd maybe invested a lot around that time to be able to build up their business model, but that business model is basically hugely now around covering their cost base through non-game day revenues, which they can't earn right now.
No, exactly.
And then
this is the thing. That's what I was saying. 2018 was relatively a good year because the year before they lost over $1 million. So if your top echelon teams, and I don't think anyone would not put St Helens in that kind of conversation.
Yeah.
If they're in that kind of situation, and looking at other, I've looked at some of the League One clubs, and their losses are a lot smaller, obviously because they're smaller organisations, but they're also losing money. So if everybody's losing money in these circumstances, that's your core problem. If you can't get to a situation where St Helens can't make money in a year when they win the League Leaders Shield, then you've got a systematic fundamental problem.
Well, and the team that won the Super League as well lost over £1 million that year. So
yeah, there you go.
Yeah. Yeah, it is.
That's the problem. That's the problem.
And how attractive is something to investors that's so destabilised by, one of the 12 teams will go down? Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, this is the thing.
How can you build your brands and your products? I think with relegation in already a small sport, and I know that you'd be potentially alienating thousands of fans who support these semi-pro teams, but these people already feel alienated anyway from the teams at the top, and they still go to watch their sides play. I don't see a surge in championship crowds, other than the makeup of the teams that have been in them, Bradford and Toronto, and Toulouse. Other than that, I don't see a surge in their crowd figures or their revenues from reverting back to a promotion and relegation system. It hasn't happened. It's static to licensing. So that it doesn't.
Well, this is the thing, isn't it? If for argument's sake, if Hull KR went down and League came up, then you're not fundamentally changing the conversation, are you?
No, exactly, no. So I just sort of think some sort of system where it's a little bit more... I don't know what's going on at Sarah's end.
Lots, I think, is the answer.
It's just a grotty daughter I've got.
I'm sure Sarah doesn't mean that, but all the motion there. I think it's just I don't think that we can keep operating in the model we're operating. I think we need to look at a more controlled system that actually people are more cooperative within, because they're forced to be, and I would hope that then would bring a better way forward for the sport. That's what I think, and it doesn't it's not a closed shop, it's just a controlled shop. Again, whether the people who are running it at the moment are the people to run that is a different question, but I'm not answering that question. I'm asking that question, I suppose. But yeah, please do give it a read. Please do let us know your opinions, because I know that a lot of people will see very differently on how I see. I've always had this about things like promotion and relegation for a long time. It's just the way it is. some people have religious or political beliefs that they'll fight to the end on. Mine is that promotion and relegation is destabilising the sport. Anyway, yeah. Thanks for going through that feedback, guys. And I think now we should look at news from around the world of rugby league.
Okay then, so in news this week, we're going to start off with the sad news that the former Hull KR and Warrington forward Jordan Cox has died at the age of 27. The circumstances of his death are believed to be non-suspicious and not related to the public health situation that's going on at the moment, according to a statement issued on behalf of the Cox family. Cox, who started his career with Hull KR, also went on to play for Sheffield, Doncaster and York City Knights. He returned to Hull KR in 2020 and was part of their reserve team squad when he died. He made a total of 64 appearances for the club, scoring 6 tries. Cox played for Warrington in 2016, making 18 Super League appearances. So really sad news.
Yeah, it's, our thoughts and condolences definitely go out to his family and friends, and it seems like he had a lot of friends in rugby league. He seems to have been a really popular guy around the squads that he's been part of. He's kind of left a mark on some people. I've seen people sort of write about rugby league that I've never seen write about rugby league before, but they'd met Jordan Cox and he'd had an impression on them and things like that. So it's a real sad news story and a sad loss to his family and to the sport.
Of course.
The other news, unrelated to coronavirus, is that Nigel Wood is to retire as Chief Executive of International Rugby League. The former RFL CEO will step down from his position at the end of the year after being a member of the board for 18 years.
Yeah, I'm trying not to be too glib about this one. I don't know what to say. What's anyone else's view?
I was pausing for one of you two to have an opinion.
Oh, Big Nigel's got plenty to do at Bradford.
I mean, I've got an opinion. I hope that this is him done, because whilst we know he sort of certainly seems to love rugby league because his involvement in it for so many years, it kind of no man has profited more from the sport while seeming to set his own empires up rather than necessarily do great work for other people. I mean, during his time in his current position, hasn't a World Cup had to be abandoned effectively and now has to be replanned because the people he got into bed with to line his own pockets actually didn't have any money to line those pockets and certainly couldn't support the sport in terms of the 2025 USA bid. And it just sort of seems like that's the same thing all over with Nigel Wood. It's a lot of experience, but it feels like a lot of experience of doing things that haven't necessarily always prospered the sport forward.
Yeah, I think that's fair to say, to be honest.
It's hard to know if his heart has always been in the right place when you see things that look duplicitous, especially around the setting up of the Bradford Bull situation in the last year or so, as well, with his family ties to that, whilst he had such prominent other roles in the sport, Al.
Yes. Yeah, that goes without saying, but malfeasance in public office and Bradford Bulls go together like a horse and carriage, don't they? But yeah, it's a I don't know, as you say, it's a mixed career. Let's just put it that way.
When he left the RFL, I think at the time we tried to treat that like he must have done some good, so let's certainly recognise the positive comments that people are making about what he's done. But at this stage, you look around and you think, well, the brightest piece of news on the International Rugby League horizon was Tonga, and he didn't manage to sort that out. It got to a point where they had to be expelled from the sport because he couldn't help them sort that out. Surely that should have been a big part of his job. You know, he leaves at a time where Australia are going to be able to play the State of Origin rather than play the Ashes. again weakening the international game. He leaves at a time where England weren't able to find